Hello, it's noon Pacific time on Wednesday, and this particular Wednesday is the 22nd of December, the Wednesday before Christmas, 2021, and getting tangled in a cable. And I came prepared with a Christmas song. There's always something. Okay, come on. Why does the cable have to do that? Let's see. Let's look for comments. Good. I can see everybody's comments. We are broadcasting live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, LinkedIn, and if you feel like sharing the broadcast on whichever platform you're watching, feel free. And but that's what we're doing. It'll be podcast. It'll turn into a podcast later if you look for This Week with David Rovix wherever podcasts are found. Yeah, broadcast all over the place using StreamYard. And pretty soon, the plan is to have a cafe in the Metaverse, and then we can broadcast there too. Everybody can just gather around in the Metaverse cafe and watch me on a screen, I think is how it will really work, because otherwise, I don't know. But at least they'll be in 3 dimensions in there, and I'll come join them afterwards. We're going to figure it all out. Santa and his elves worked on the North Pole, making toys to take to kids around the earth. They worked hard all year to try to fill the orders. Then they flew the toys from Portland out to Perth. Then the whole economy collapsed, and everyone was getting fired. Santa said it's time to close the workshop. Santa said more urgent measures are required. Santa saddled up his reindeer with the skull and bones unfurled. Santa went and joined the pirates for the good of the children of the world. Santa flew down to the Gulf of Aden, waited for a good ship to attack. The crew gave up without a fight. Santa put the toys all in a sack. Santa headed to Moldova, gave out everything, and then he flew back to the Gulf of Aden to go and do it all again. Santa saddled up his reindeer with the skull and bones unfurled. Santa went and joined the pirates for the good of the children of the world. Navies tried to catch him, but Santa always got away. Like Robin Hood with superpowers, there upon his flying sleigh. Eventually they got him in a helicopter raid, but not before he inspired many more to take up the pirate trade. Santa saddled up his reindeer with the skull and bones unfurled. Santa went and joined the pirates for the good of the children of the world. Santa saddled up his reindeer with the skull and bones unfurled. Santa went and joined the pirates for the good of the children of the world. Yeah. And so that's a story about Santa joining the pirates. And there's, I just have to mention Bjorn Magni Stusdal in Norway. They're wonderful animator, professor of animation, I believe, these days. He animated a whole bunch of videos, and we were going to do one with that song. That was the one that got away. I think his hard drive crashed, and it never quite happened. But that was when I was, before I gave up on fame and fortune, I was thinking, what's going to be the thing to do here? And Bjorn Magni said, well, if you want to capture the hearts and minds of Scandinavia, I'm paraphrasing here, then you need to write a song that combines the themes of Christmas and piracy. And I thought he really had a point there, to the extent that I was already quite familiar with Scandinavian societies. And so that was our effort at combining the two themes, which was not difficult to do, as it turned out, because really Santa is a bit of a Robin Hood, sort of Robin Hood / God character. Wonderful idea, theoretically, I suppose. And this next song, I was just kind of meandering through songs on my iPad here, and I thought this song was maybe going to be a very short-lived kind of thing, but it seems with Omicron, it's getting a new life all over again. So wear a mask for any task, especially if you're indoors or there's not much space from my face to yours. If you care, then you wear a barrier of some kind between your face and mine. Over time, you will find it's just about as hard as remembering your credit card. Go on strike as you like, but out there on the picket line, keep some space between the signs. Go to the mall, have a ball, but if you're there to shop or loot the place, don't forget to cover your face. Sanitize, watch out for spies, undercover cops, provocateurs, divide and conquer connoisseurs. Drive a tank, rob a bank, just make sure you dress appropriately as you walk off with the money. Go downtown, and burn down the police station, but be wise and wash the tear gas from your eyes. Yes, wear a mask. Well, just sticking around the W's here. Last week, the Persian Prince was suggesting a song, which I practiced a little this morning. Very relevant, given it's always relevant, given the U.S.'s constant intentions, it seems, to attack Iran. Here's a little history for you. Missile strikes in Baghdad. Missile strikes in Baghdad, skies full of fighter jets. The tension in the air, as thick as it gets. The talking points are loaded at each press conference with what passes for an effort at historical reference. They talk of things that happened over 40 years before. They say now bring us to the edge of World War. They talk about the hostages, so let us now rewind. When the students took the embassy, just what did they find? When the students took the embassy, I was just a kid, but I remember well the first things they did. Let all the women go while collecting all the trash, all the shredded documents that weren't yet turned to ash, all the shredded documents that clearly showed the torture and corruption, how the power flowed. The concept of a captured state was one the Shah defined. When the students took the embassy, what did they find? When the students took the embassy, they found the crimes of Savak, had the CIA hiding under every rock. And that's where they had been, where the agents were based. They had a staff of thousands there, from there they laid to waste the dreams held by so many for a free society, like the one they overthrew back in 1953. Historic crimes exposed in the shredder once consigned. When the students took the embassy, just what did they find? When the students took the embassy, turn the vocals down a little because they were peaking. Did I? Now I can't remember if I did this song before, but it sure works well in the mandola. And it's in the W's. Fifth month of the year, on the 1st of May, known around the world as International Workers' Day. You'll still see people marching in every corner of the earth. St. John to Santiago, Kerala to Perth, all keeping alive the fantasy, what could happen down the line when the workers of the world combine. You can see us gathering early in the morn. Some are celebrating the shackles we have shorn, while so many billions are just waiting for the moment that we might stop losing the class war. When someday we can all say, yeah, we're doing fine. When the workers of the world combine. When that time arrives, maybe it looks like May Day, like a festival that comes home and doesn't go away. Every race and gender, every walk and station, with the working class united, every land and nation. Then just watch what happens when we follow the same sign. When the workers of the world combine. Day Christmas. I think May Day Christmas is a good idea. We should have a May Day Christmas. We definitely need to combine those themes. Well, there's just tremendous amounts of flooding and destruction around the world these days. Keep on seeing it on the news. If it's not about the pandemic, it's about all that. Everybody knew that it could happen. The likelihood was clear. The future was coming. Now it's here. They had to fix the levees, otherwise they'd break. On one side was the city, above it was the lake. It was in the daily papers, in bold letters was the writ. What would happen when the big one hit? But every year they cut the funding just a little more, so they could give it to the army to fight their oil war. National Geographic and the Times-Picayune, they forecast the apocalypse, it was coming soon. Preparations must be made, they said, now is the time. It was years ago, they shouted, inaction was a crime. They said the dikes must be improved and the wetlands must be saved. But Washington decided instead they should be paved, because malls were more important than people's lives. So put some gold dust in your eyes and hope no storm arrives. New Orleans, New Orleans, New Orleans. Years and years of warning, no evacuation plan. It was just if the waters rose, get out if you can. There were no buses, no one chartered any trains. There was no plan to rescue all of those who would remain. All the people with no money, all the people with no wheels, all of those who couldn't hotwire one that they could steal. Thousands and thousands of people abandoned by the state, abandoned by their country, just left to meet their fate. New Orleans, New Orleans, New Orleans. Some more. They drowned inside their attics. An army of the poor, an army of the destitute who couldn't get away. And the world will remember those sad and awful days when people shouted from their houses, dying on their roofs. When people came to find them, they were turned back by the troops. They died there with no water, they died there in the heat. They were shot down by the soldiers for trying to find some food to eat. New Orleans, New Orleans, New Orleans. Now the city is in ruins. A massive toxic sea scattered through the nation. 500,000 refugees. Here we are in the richest country on the earth, where the color of your skin determines what your life is worth. Where oil is the king, global warming is ignored. The very end of life is the place we're heading towards, where it's more than just a metaphor, the flooding of the dike. And if we don't stop this madness, the whole planet will be like New Orleans, New Orleans, New Orleans, New Orleans, New Orleans, New Orleans. On the other hand, there's been some wonderful strike activity going on lately with the victory just recently of the 3-month-long strike at the Kellogg's cereal factories around the country. And then a very successful, very brief strike at the Fred Meyer outlets, Kroger-owned Fred Meyer outlets and other Kroger-owned outlets around here in Oregon They just went on strike for 24 hours or less. It was just well timed for the shopping season here, and they won. There's been a few other wonderful examples. In the case of what was it? Was it Kellogg's? So they were already in the process of trying to hire scabs, but apparently even before Biden denounced the practice, which was quite interesting, they already weren't able to find the workers because there's a shortage. So even paying them well, they just couldn't find them. Fancy that. War came, men were drafted, many never made it back. Those who did discovered in their absence they'd got the sack. Tenements and squalor, both rats and people getting sick. What they had in common, life was short, death was quick. No one had a plan what they were going to do. And all the men came back home and the ranks of the unemployed grew. The way the people had to live was no life at all, but it still came as a surprise. How many answered the call? If you weren't there, you'll never know just what it was like when the whole city went on strike. City leaders and newspapers, in many ways they tried to do everything they could to widen the divide between good Canadians and those they called alien scum, between those who missed conscription and those who beat the war drum. But when the veterans marched in Winnipeg, they marched for everyone under the banner of the working class, the one big union. Everybody left their jobs, whether organized or not. Even the policemen walked away, refused to embrace the rot. If you weren't there, you'll never know just what it was like when the whole city went on strike. The mayor deputized the scabs. Soon they shot 2 men who died in the city center on the hour when the scabs rampaged through the city, attacking anyone in the street, trapping people in alleyways, not even allowing them to retreat. Soldiers occupied the city. People hadn't eaten in weeks. The prospects for victory began to look bleak. People went back to their jobs, if indeed they even could. The bosses said they'd seek revenge, and many of them would. If you weren't there, you'll never know just what it was like when the whole city went on strike. Strike leaders were imprisoned, from where several were elected to the Canadian Parliament. And a monument was erected at Main and Portage, where a streetcar was overturned, driven in by strike breakers on the spot where it was burned. It was a century ago, but life is often still defined by which side you are on that picket line. Was your grandpa shot in the heart, or did they break his leg when the working class rose up and shut down Winnipeg? If you weren't there, you'll never know just what it was like when the whole city went on strike. Yeah, nah, we can imagine, can't we? So it's like this sense of impending doom. You feeling it? "10,000 children played in the playground, swinging on swings, didn't hear the sound of a single plane that flew overhead. The third shift workers were just going to bed. There's a flash of light and a rumbling noise, gone in an instant. Parents, girls, and boys, 10,000 mothers were boiling rice. 3,000 prisoners of war were rolling their dice, hoping they'd survive this terrible storm. When each young man in his uniform vanished in the air in the blink of an eye. One moment they lived, the next they all died. Hiroshima. Hiroshima. 10,000 lovers made love to each other, each one of them thinking there might not be another. Living so long with death everywhere, much more than one person alone can bear. But there wasn't time for a final kiss. Who could have known it would end like this? Hiroshima. Hiroshima. 200,000 people were living their lives. Grandparents, children, fathers and wives. Now they're just shadows on the street in such a quick burst of incredible heat. Now listen to them talk about doing it again. From whence came the souls of these terrible men? Hiroshima. 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 Let's see. It's been years since the virus arrived. Years since in this country 500,000 died. Years since the borders were starting to be sealed. Years since the hospitals were sprouting into fields. No question for anyone living around here. It's been a year. It's been a year since the cafes all closed, since the dates on the calendars froze. As the windows turned to plywood and the plywood turned to art. Unless you were essential or worked in a food cart, then you just had to cope with the anxiety and fear. It's been a year. been a year since wheels in motion led to an uprising on each side of the ocean, exposed by the pandemic, by inequality. 929 of the neck beneath the knee. The time of counter demos, for a while the coup seemed near. It's been a year. It's been a year since canceling the rent. A year since the last of the money was spent. Since so many saw we're all vectors for disease. There is such a thing as society. Since the words mutual aid became ones you'll commonly hear, along with grim milestone, it's been a year. I don't know what it says about me that I have no recollection of what songs I did last week, but I guess I figure you guys might know better, any of you who are actually listening, because I play the mandola every day. And I don't know what one day from the next, because there's nothing like that around here anymore. And of course, well, for the past month, the past several weeks, my 5-year-old, his teacher has COVID, so, which of course, like everybody else, so we're hanging out at home a lot without much social contact. And what timing the metaverse comes along at Omicron, what at the same time as Omicron. I mean, it makes you appreciate the conspiracy theorists. Zuckerberg, he invented it, I'm sure. Omicron, he programmed it. You got to get an Oculus headset to be immune. Robert Ross was from Ross Trevor. He was born in County Down. His family was given land there by the British Crown. He was a man born of the wet gentry, born with wealth and fame, but he joined the British Army to serve his queen and make his name. In the Napoleonic Wars, he fought in many lands, Holland and in Spain, and the far-off Egyptian sands. He was wounded there in battle, came back to fight another day, and he was sent off to attack the USA. York had been sacked and burned by invading Yankee men, but the Canadians regrouped, chased the Yankees home, and then the British Navy made its way to the shores of D.C. town, where General Ross burned the White House down. Oh, shit. The year was 1814. The U.S. was in retreat. It was a Canadian victory, an American defeat. Without the French to help them, they got their ass whipped by the Crown when General Ross burned the White House down. The place had just been constructed only 12 years before, but it had to be rebuilt soon after this disastrous war. The president turned tail and ran like a raggedy clown when General Ross burned the White House down. He was killed a few months later. Irish rebels stopped him in his tracks. He was buried in Nova Scotia, in the town of Halifax. He might have been forgotten, but he'll forever be renowned. He's the man who burned the White House down. He's the man who burned the White House down. Well, we got a request. And it's a song I definitely recall having played before, but I'll do it anyway. I think I did it every other time, so that way I remember. But it is a song I'm honored to have written that is like the result of a significant part of my ongoing successful maintenance of mental health is because I wrote this song, and every day I get comments on YouTube praising Ireland. My name is John Riley. I'll have your ear only a while. I left my dear home in Ireland. It was death, starvation, or exile. When I got to America, it was my duty to go. Enter the army and slog across Texas to join in the war against Mexico. It was there in the pueblos and hillsides that I saw the mistake I had made. Part of a conquering army with the morals of a bayonet blade. In the midst of these poor dying Catholics, screaming children, the burning stench of it all, myself and 200 Irishmen decided to rise to the call. From Dublin City to San Diego, we witnessed freedom denied. So we formed the St. Patrick Battalion and we fought on the Mexican side. We formed the St. Patrick Battalion and we fought on the Mexican side. We marched neath the green flag of St. Patrick, emblazoned with Erin Golbra, right with the harp and the shamrock and Libertad para la Republica. Just 50 years after Wolfe Tone, 5,000 miles away, the Yanks called us a legion of strangers, and they can talk as they may. Some from Dublin City to San Diego, we witnessed freedom denied. So we formed the St. Patrick Battalion and we fought on the Mexican side. We formed the St. Patrick Battalion and we fought on the Mexican side. In 5 major battles, Churubusco was the last. Overwhelmed by the cannons from Boston, we fell after each mortar blast. Most of us died on that hillside in the service of the Mexican state. So far from our occupied homeland, we were heroes and victims of fate. From Dublin City to San Diego, we witnessed freedom denied. So we formed the St. Patrick Battalion and we fought on the Mexican side. From Dublin City to San Diego, we witnessed freedom denied. So we formed the St. Patrick Battalion and we fought on the Mexican side. We fought on the St. Patrick Battalion and we fought on the Mexican side. Oh, here's one that's not in the key of C. I only have one song not in the key of C, and so I should do it. I mean, I have other songs not in the key of C, but on the mandola, I don't know how to play in anything other than the key of C, mostly. And the only reason I can play in keys other than the key of C on the guitar is because I play in the key of D. And I have the use of a capo. But this thing, forget about it. If you capo this thing, you got nothing left. When you're working 2 jobs and living in a tent, when a house costs $1 million and you can't pay the rent, when politicians say they'll help but it keeps getting worse each time the landlord lobby pulls the strings of the purse, when the human right to housing isn't even part of the debate, you know you're living in a failed state. Millions of citizens are spending half their lives locked up in a prison for trying to survive. When laws must be broken just to have a place to stay. When the prisons pay the senators to look the other way. You have to be a criminal to put food upon your plate. You know you're living in a failed state. Facing climate breakdown when the trees are all on fire, when half the country's underwater, when a climate change denier runs the nation, and the opposition party votes for oil rigs and pipelines. It's not so much a country as it is a corporation buckling under its weight. You know you're living in a failed state. When your nation is an empire facing daily blowback, and the only thing your leaders can think to do is attack, bipartisan consensus that we need to spend $700 billion before the year's end on a military budget to make America great. You know you're living in a failed state. When almost every day some psycho with a gun has to open fire on a crowd before it's done. When a supermarket becomes a free fire zone, and all they can say is it's okay now, he was acting alone. Buy some armor, pray to God, and hide behind the gate. You know you're living in a failed state. You know you're living in a failed state. You know you're living in a failed state. let's see here. Glad folks are enjoying musical interludes. They are random, which is why I like them. When what luckily people don't ask me much is what kind of music is that? Because I have no idea. But I wouldn't want to at all claim it was original, but but otherwise I don't know what it is. It might be bluegrass, but probably not. If you ask a bluegrass purist, it's definitely not bluegrass. It's a lot of things are like that, Like a lot of people who in the United States we might consider on the liberal end of the political spectrum are used to being considered to be socialists until they actually hang out with socialists, at which time they realize that they're not. That kind of thing happens. To use a political analogy, to complicate an easy metaphor with politics. Here's a song that Kamala and Lorna sing amazing harmonies to. On the rare occasion we are in the same place at the same time. It's just been years. But death toll keeps mounting. Each time I turn on my phone, another mass shooting, another free fire zone, failed states of America, white supremacist rule, a society riven with victims and tools. The fires keep burning, completely out of control. Makes you miss the old days of the ozone hole. The snow is all melting, the lakes of Greenland, the best hope that I have, I hold in my hand. If there's a tomorrow, then when yesterday's through, you have me, and I have you. We might have to leave town, or maybe we'll fall beneath a hail of bullets at the shopping mall. Perhaps we'll be arrested, perhaps they'll pass us by, but wherever we might be, when we look up at the sky, if there's a tomorrow, then when yesterday's through, you have me, and I have you. Call it natural, made by humankind. We'd like it to be different, but this is the place we find, the one we inherit, the one we're in now. Whatever might come of the future, why, when, how? If there's a tomorrow, then when yesterday's through, you have me, and I have you. If there's a tomorrow, then when yesterday's through, you have me, and I have you. I have you. Let's see, here we go. I got one that's kind of upbeat. I think I haven't done it. There are a lot of white men in this world who turn out a lot like Dean Schmitz. Homophobic, racist, bigoted, and mean. He grew up to be a hard man, did the things that hard men do. Picked fights, went to prison, got a swastika tattoo. Cece McDonald is a child of creation, and she's black and she's trans, an often deadly combination. She went out with friends one night, as friends often do, which is where she met the man with the swastika tattoo. Cece McDonald wasn't looking for a fight. She was out for the evening to have a drink, perhaps a bite. For Dean Schmitz, the same thing was not true. That's how it is when you're a guy with a swastika tattoo. Dean said things to Cece, which I shall not repeat here, about her race, about her gender, about all things he thought queer. Cece and her friends tried not to take the cue. Not so the man with the swastika tattoo. The first blow was from a bigot, a beer mug to the face, which left Cece bleeding all over the place. Cece left the building. The next thing that she knew, she was confronted by the man with the swastika tattoo. Cece left the building. She didn't want to stay. She walked out onto the sidewalk. She tried to get away, but when the Nazi came to get her, she did what she had to do, and she stabbed him in his swastika tattoo. Cece had no weapons, but sometimes you could improvise. So she tried her sewing scissors on for size. Turned out they were sharp, turned out her aim was true, and it was the last day for the man with the swastika tattoo. Cece called the cops, and they took her off to jail. She was sentenced to 3 years, but she lived to tell the tale. It's one more woman who's still breathing, one less Nazi who had upon his chest a swastika tattoo. Let's see here. True story. Look it up. I will do this one. I'll do this one more, and thanks for joining me on this weekly Wednesday jam in the Metaverse. Every Wednesday at noon Pacific time on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitch. And as long as the pandemic keeps me at home, I'll keep that up. And maybe when I start touring again, I will stop live streaming as much. Or maybe I'll keep this up from the road. Who knows? Probably not. It's too complicated. And in case it's not obvious or happening to everybody else or whatever, my tours are looking unlikely to be happening for the near future. All kinds of folks are canceling their gigs, sporting events, cinemas, theaters, tours, all sorts of that stuff. But that's not just the big Broadway shows. That's also all of us small-time artists. It's happening to all of us. And the Patreon link is at the bottom of the screen. But if you're not on the screen and you're listening to this as a podcast, it's patreon.com/David Rovics. Your support is especially appreciated in this time of inability to tour, growing new variant of the pandemic, end of the child tax credit, and an increase in the rent all at the same time. Plus dentistry, plus Christmas. Christmas is the cheapest of the lot. When the floor fell out from the way it used to be. when people used to pay for stuff, before all of it was free. Those who didn't crash got taken down a peg. 'Cause if you want to be an artist, you gotta learn to beg. Patreon, Patreon. When all of your merch sales and all your gigs are gone, Patreon. On the 5th of every month, the last day before rent's late, the deposit arrives and improves his failed state. The difference between drowning in debt or waiting for the 5th and just getting my feet wet. Patreon, Patreon. When all your merch sales and all your gigs are gone, Patreon. Support for the arts is some kind of a cruel joke. Anything that's out there will just keep you broke. I could get a real job, or I could wish upon a star that there are enough of you who think I should just keep playing this guitar. Patreon, Patreon. When all your merch sales and all your gigs are gone, Patreon. Music's free on Spotify. That's where we're at. It's a precious little segment that steps up to bat. I miss the old days, but I'm okay. Panhandling my time away on Patreon, Patreon. When all your merch sales and all your gigs are gone, Patreon. Patreon. When all your merch sales and all your gigs are gone, Patreon. That's the international national anthem of gig workers everywhere. Or at least they're welcome to use it if they want to. I mentioned I only do things in a certain key on the mandola, and that key is a little high for my voice generally, but actually, under the circumstances, it works very well. Who is this person commenting? I don't know this person anyway. Whoever this strange person on YouTube is, just ignore them. I'm talking about, the one who's denouncing everything I'm singing. Okay. Otherwise, thank you all for joining me, and I will see you again next week, where I will have a special guest by the name of Keith McHenry, founder of Food Not Bombs, and a person about whom I have actually written at least 2 songs, the coolest of which is on a compilation, well, not an album I put out with Virtual Bird, with a fantastic punk band from Olympia. And we collaborated on 10 songs, including the song There Is a Cage, which is, I believe, the first song on the album It's Been a Year, which is on Spotify and all the other platforms. And if you want to check out some background. And the Ballad of Eola Park, that's another one I wrote about Keith, him getting arrested in Florida, along with other fine, upstanding civil disobedience committers from Food Not Bombs. And so we'll have a little year in review of the situation on the streets of this country, with Keith McHenry next week, and then I'll come back again for other such things every Wednesday. And why is it that we have the most viewers as I'm leaving? I'm not sure what's that about, but I should have announced this before I came on, which I failed to do today. But it's going to be a regular thing you can predict every Wednesday at noon Pacific time, unless we get there's a hurricane that, takes out our electricity and Wi-Fi, and cell phone towers, and in which case, we will not be here. But otherwise, I'll be back every Wednesday at noon Pacific. And keep on keeping on. These are hard times for pretty much most everybody other than the billionaires. But even the billionaires can't go out to eat, unless they own the restaurant, which they do anyway. So I guess it's probably not an issue for them. But it's that's too big a subject to try to take on at the very end here. So I'll just save that for the discussion with Keith. Okay, take care, everybody. Keep on keeping on. Look up the podcast This Week with David Rovics, wherever podcasts are found. And if you want to support what I'm doing, patreon.com/David Rovics, please. Thank you. And have a good time, unless you're, living in a sewer, in which case, good luck with that. And you're probably not having a good time. Okay, bye.